Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanum. Pakhair agale. Ni hao. Chunushumme. Washmale. Ohaya Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Boyor. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shumachatore. Ahlan wasalan. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabi. Balli kare aaya. Hosh galdin and ayo sayo. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You are certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, it's a very important day today. So before I say anything, I would seriously want my wonderful colleague over here to kind of shed light on that, and then from there onwards, we will continue with the day.
Okay, so today is 6th of September and the nation is observing its 58th Defense and Martyrs Day to pay tribute to the martyrs who laid their lives for the defense of this country. So Shahzad, I grew up in a lot of camps and we had
Me
this...
too.
Lovely. Okay, so and we had this sort of tradition that we know, and I also am the alumni of Army Public School. So my school used to hold a lot of tableaux commemorating this day, where we hold a lot of plays where we used to pay tribute to the martyrs, to the soldiers, and it was such a lovely memories, you know, that still stick to my heart, to still stick to my brain. And what about you? How did you guys commemorate?
I believe it's likewise because I used to go to Beria College, and Beria College once again is administered by Pakistan Navy. So at the same time, I believe what is really important over here is that, you know, for all of those activities we have been involved in while, you know, we were going to school, gave us that spirit, you know, because when we talk about all of those amazing soldiers who have sacrificed their lives for their motherland, you know, because when we talk about Pakistan Army, Pakistan Air Force or Pakistan Navy, either you're going to get war veterans or either you're going to get people who are martyrs and who have actually sacrificed their lives for their motherland. And it is so important, I believe, for the future generations to know. But then at the same time, imagine that, you know, this unwavered resolve, you know, by when we say that the entire nation actually supports Pakistan Army, Pakistan Air Force or Pakistan Navy, this unwavered resolve is something which really needs to reach out to our future generations so that they would know that, you know, if we live in this very sovereign motherland of ours, which we call Islamic Republic of Pakistan, you know, there's been a cost to it, to making sure that, you know, that the sovereignty is going to stay amongst us, so that we are going to live the life the way we want, the way, you know, our Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah got this country and for the purpose. So that purpose really needs to be fulfilled. And before we say any further, I believe that it's about time that we take a good look. And before we take a good look at the top stories, I really need to kind of admire the role of Pakistan Army, Pakistan Navy and Pakistan Air Force. It's because that we all know that Pakistan recently has been hit by the worst floods ever witnessed in the history. So what they've done is that they're not observing this day the way it was observed with the zeal and fervor. So what they've done is that there used to be a ceremony at GHQ in Rawalpindi where we would really go and kind of take a look at all of those people who've contributed towards the sovereignty of our motherland, and not just that, and pay rich tribute to all of those martyrs who've sacrificed their lives. So this year around, actually it is dedicated to all of those people who've been affected by the flood. So rich tribute to Pakistan Armed Forces once again. Thank you very much for doing what you've been doing for us so far. And even when we talk about flood, Haja, we do know that it's Pakistan Army, Pakistan Navy and Pakistan Air Force who are out there, who conducted the rescue operations, and which is why we could sleep very calmly at the end of the day. But first up, let's see what's happening all over the globe.
Right, so the nation observes its 58th Defense and Martyrs Day to pay tribute to the martyrs who laid their lives and salute the veterans who fought to defend and uphold the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Pakistan. The day is observed every year on 6th of September to revitalize the national spirit, remember and eulogize the sacrifices of the martyrs who spilled their blood for the security of the sacred motherland and marked an exemplary history of patriotism. The day dawned with 31 gun salute at the federal capital and 21 gun salute at the provincial capitals, whereas a change of guard ceremony will be held at Mazar-e-Qaid. However, the Central Defense and Martyrs Day ceremony to be held at the GHQ was postponed by Pakistan Army due to the prevailing floods that wreaked havoc in the flood-affected areas of Sindh, Balochistan, Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
And in addition to that, moving on towards the next news, ladies and gentlemen, obviously it is really very important to kind of include the message given by the Prime Minister of Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So while the nation actually observes its 50th Defense and Martyrs Day, our Prime Minister has a very amazing message for the entire nation out there, because Mr. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab says that the day is remembered as a symbol of courage, display of unmatched resilience, and the spirit of supreme sacrifice by the valiant sons of the soil. In his message on the day, he said the entire Pakistani nation, while displaying unprecedented unity and resolute strength, came forward for the support of their armed forces. He said the show of unprecedented unity and solidarity of the nation galvanized our officers and jawans, pilots and sailors in their fight to secure the motherland against the Indian aggression. The Prime Minister commended the role of the security forces, especially the Army and Navy personnel, in saving the lives of thousands of people during recent floods in Balochistan, Sindh, KP and southern Punjab. Our armed forces' role in maintaining peace in various countries under the UN banner is also being acknowledged worldwide. Shukr, alhamdulillah. I'm so proud to be a Pakistani. And for each and every individual who's out there, there's another important message which is linked with that. So it is not just about the people who have served the Pakistan Army or Pakistan Navy or Pakistan Air Force. It is about all of those children who were being martyred, in a very brutal attack when we talk about Army Public School, and all of those civilians who contributed towards the security, towards the sovereignty of our motherland. It is a very important day, and for all of those parents who are out there, it really needs to transcend. This message needs to transcend to our future generations.
That's very true, and it is very aptly said that the tree of the freedom needs to be nourished with the blood of the sacrifice. And we have seen, Shehzad, that armed forces of Pakistan, be it the Navy, be it the Air Force, be it the Army, have always contributed to the defense of motherland.
True.
When I say defense of the motherland, I do not necessarily mean the securing borders. It's also helping people who are distressed, who are affected by these massive and mammoth and monster floodings, and also making sure that there are a lot of earthquakes that came into our country. Our armed forces were there helping out people, making sure that the relief and rescue operation reaches out there, because they have the capacity, they have the discipline, they have the infrastructure through which they can help out our brethren in need, their brethren in the distress. And this is what makes me so proud to be a part of this big family of Pakistan and the armed forces, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So without any further ado, I would really like to introduce my guest, because he happens to be a war veteran. He has fought on the lot of defenses. He's fought on the Waziristan. He has fought on the other areas in the Kashmir, in the Kargil, and he will elaborate the importance of this day. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce my guest. He happens to be Brigadier Retired Hamid Rashid Awan Malik Sahab. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Thank you very much. And Shehzad and Hajra, I'm really blessed to be here and talk about a very important aspect of our glorious history.
Exactly.
Right.
Sir, it's an honor for us to have you over here, first of all, obviously, because, I right at the beginning mentioned that, for all of those Jawans and officers who have served in Pakistan Army, Air Force or Navy, we do know either they are war veterans or either they are martyrs too. But now, sir, when we talk about the significance and importance of this day, we really need to highlight the role, because imagine that 3 or 4 years ago, when it was Yom Shoda and Defense Day, I, alhamdulillah, got this opportunity to host the entire event. And believe you me, that, that the resolve we see on the faces of the mothers of all of those brave sons of the soil who've sacrificed their lives. Because I still remember that one of the parent actually said to me while we were having a conversation, she had only one son, and that son went into army and then he was martyred. So she said that even if I would have had more sons to myself, I would still sacrifice them for the motherland Pakistan. So if that's the kind of resolve, what do you think today we need to highlight, and what message needs to go to the future generations?
As I already said, that it is very glorious episode of our history.
True.
And especially for the young generations, they need to understand that this day symbolizes the great courage, valor
True.
of our valiant sons, not only particularly the Pakistan Army and in general our Pakistani nation.
True.
And secondly, we need to realize that our nation is a nation which has a very rich history of sacrifices.
True.
Right from the inception, that is 1947, the migration which took place, people sacrificed all their wealth, everything, livelihood, and
True.
they came to Pakistan so that the land created for the pure Pakistani people. And then 1948 war, people sacrificed their life for the liberation of Kashmir,
True.
which is unresolved till now. Then 1965 war, which signifies the 6th September, the war, our arch rival Indian, they treacherously crossed the international border in the darkness of night and attacked Pakistan at 3 places, that Lahore, Sialkot and in Run of Kutch.
True.
The valiant sons of Pakistan, they defended every inch of land, they sacrificed their blood, they sacrificed their lives, and they made Indian to pay heavily, incurred heavy losses on them. They were not allowed to attack even an inch of Pakistan. On top of that, Major Raja Aziz Bhatti, Shaheed, he earned Nishan-e-Haider, he paid supreme sacrifice of laying his life defending Pakistan, not allowing India to even capture an inch of land.
Exactly.
And every year we celebrate 6th September to actually not pay homage to our rich Shoda and Ghazis, but also to educate our young generation to learn a lesson and also to have that selfless sacrifice in their life.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to that, there's one more thing which I would also want to ask you over here, because today we're speaking about all of that valor and courage which you people have been exhibiting whenever you've been required to. Alhamdulillah. Where do you get that courage from, when you know that you're going, because when we go back in time, 1965, 1971, we do know that, our amazing brothers and sisters, from Pakistan Army or Pakistan Navy or Pakistan Air Force, imagine that when we hear that people actually took bombs with them, lay down under the tanks of the enemies and made sure that, their life wasn't important, but it was the motherland. How do you instill this feeling within your own self? Is it the institute which does it for you, or is it naturally? Because even now, when it was Pakistan versus India, just yesterday, it was very different for all of us. So when it comes down to Pakistan, it naturally occurs. But how about you?
Actually, it is first, I would say that it is our religion, which teaches us that pay sacrifice. The sacrifice is basically a prayer for it.
True.
And you will earn heavens for it. If you lay life in the name of Allah or your country,
True.
so you will earn heaven. And it is a great reward for every Shaheed and for Ghazi also. And second is you people, the nation. When nation is our back, we are strong. And no enemy can overpower us.
True.
And we have that courage, we have that mettle, we have that substance that we can overcome any difficulty, every challenge.
Exactly.
Whether it is our enemy, whether it is any natural calamity. And if you see our history, that there have been so many calamities, but we have always come stronger to that.
Exactly.
We have been able to overcome our losses. We have been able to get victories. So that is the strength, that is the devotion, that is the bondage of the nation with the armed forces, which makes them more powerful.
And we are super proud of that too.
That's lovely. And as our guest very aptly mentioned, be it the Run of the Kutch incursion or the Operation Grand Slam, Pakistan Army valiantly defended our motherland, our borders, and made sure that enemy gets the surprise, because they were trying to give us the surprise by attacking us in the darkness of the night, but we responded very valiantly. So it's not just the Defense Day, it's also the Martyrs Day, where Pakistan after the 9/11 ventured into the war on terror, and it was a very difficult time for us as a nation, because we knew that how difficult it was to identify the enemy in the first place and then attack it and kill it and make sure that our motherland is secure. I believe a lot of army has fought the war on terror. Lot of people, like Shahzad very aptly mentioned, they are either the Ghazis or the Shaheeds, right? And Pakistan, I believe, is the only country that has very successfully won the war on terror. How would you elaborate your experiences on winning this war on terror?
Like in a conventional war, the enemy is visible, and you actually know where is the line across which there will be enemy, and you are free to fight the way you want.
True.
But in war on terror, it was very difficult. And it is still very difficult because the enemy is invisible, and it is very difficult to decipher between a civilian and a terrorist.
That's true.
Because he is clad in their dress.
True.
And it is also very difficult to understand a vehicle coming to you is with the civilians on board or with explosive on board.
True.
And it is split of second you need to decide, and that is why you see there are many casualties which we have suffered. The number of officers, the number of people, the shahadat we have got in that, and also the number of people who got war wounded in that.
True.
There is a lot. And it is not one person, it is a one family. And then the 50,000 more civilians which have got shaheed in that.
True.
Right.
So we need to understand, and why we have won again, the nation was at our back.
Right.
After the massacre of APS Peshawar, the nation realized it is our war. When it is our war, that is mean it is war of our nation.
True.
And secondly, Again I said our religion, which promises you heavens if you get shahadat, and it also promises great reward if you are ghazi. So that devotion, that noble sense and noble cause gave you that courage, gave you that expertise, and the training we got from our institution, and the strength of our institution which never melted away against that. Even American could not win a war against terrorism. And I think, alhamdulillah, it is only Pakistan army. And it is because of the great nation, our religion, and I must say, the strength of our institution, the strength of Pakistan armed forces, which never melted away against terrorism.
Right. And adding to this conversation, sir, so I was in conversation with Brigadier Shaz, who happens to be your coursemate also, and he told me that, look, Pakistan Army, you will not report even one single defection. Why? Because we are committed to our religion, Islam. We are committed to the defense of our motherland, and this is what gives...
We have the concept of jihad too.
Right. And this is what gives us strength, the discipline that is instilled in us. So there is this term called brother in arms. They're not actually relatively brothers, they're not related by the blood, but rather it's when they are in the ditches, it's when in their very, hot and humid conditions and not a very conducive sort of environment, they're looking after each other, they're making sure that the next person doesn't die when the fire comes in. And that is why you will see that, Afghanistan's forces, they left their arms and weapons when it comes to the onslaught of their enemies. And Pakistan Army, you will never see such kind of example in that. But coming back to the natural calamities and the disaster, back in 2005, we saw that there was a massive earthquake. And Pakistan Army has very aptly established a command and control center called ERA. And that was very instrumental in providing rescue and relief operations. And 95% of the people were rehabilitated. United Nations applauded Pakistan in rehabilitating the people. That is a massive achievement for us, because we do not have very good resources when it comes to that.
And in addition to that, I would like to add on over here, so moving on from 2005, because that's when we properly had sense too. So moving on from there onwards, 2010, there was massive flooding. Once again, Pakistan Armed Forces Jawans were out there. Not just that, as soon as COVID was here, we did saw that, there was this National Command Center which was being established. And then the world actually witnessed how we covered this very menace of COVID. Not just that, let's talk about, FATA's inclusion in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Our Pakistan Army played a very pivotal role. Talk about FATF Grey List, Pakistan Army's role really needs to be highlighted over here too as well. So almost on every front, they've always made sure to protect the country so that, we, alhamdulillah, at our homes, at the ease of our beds, always feel relaxed. And that's the kind of trust the nation really needs to have in their armed forces. And alhamdulillah, we as Pakistanis have all the trust in our armed forces. So moving on with that, so when there's so much trust, when there's so much backing, when the nation actually calls out for you, how do you, as a member of the most prestigious institute over here, would want to relate with that? Because wherever you may probably go, even as kids, we have been saluting army officers. I wanted to be an army officer. That's a different story that I couldn't really get through the test too as well. But yes, I mean, each and every bacha of our soil actually wants to be the part of these prestigious institutes. How was it for you, your journey, yourself?
I think it was very rewarding, and I feel blessed that I joined this profession, not as a profession, but as my obsession.
Wow.
Because it is a different kind of life. Here you need to sacrifice, you need to pay back to the nation. You need not to earn. Here
it's like you're always thinking about not yourself, but rather the nation.
That is the nation. And it is instilled in you when you are under training. That institution, that Pakistan Military Academy teaches you that you need to live for the others. You have been born special. You need to live for the others, you need to serve the other, you need to serve the country. Your country becomes supreme to you, and your own life, your family becomes secondary to you.
Exactly.
So that actually the teaching is imbibed in you, and that devotion, that noble sense is imbibed in you. As you said that when a child salutes you, you feel exalted, and then you also feel a sense of responsibility that you need to pay back to this child. He is expecting so much from you. And that is why, if you say there is a history of calamities of Pakistan, I said that there is a history of sacrifices right from the migration 1947 till to date. And Pakistan Army, being blessed with a very organized rank and command structure, has that capability to reach out to the people. And then I said that the noble sense which you get inspired also, you need that you go an extra mile. You need to even go into hip deep water or even a neck deep water. You need to go and save your brother and sisters who are in distress. And whether it is flood, whether it is earthquake, you will always find that the soldiers, they are not only doing a national duty, they are personally sacrificing their own food also. Their life, their even recently, Jana Sarfraz and 5 other our alumni, they sacrificed their lives while serving the nation, serving those people who were stranded in floods. So it is not only limited to Jana Sarfraz or to Jana Kamarjit Bajwa. You will find all across the ranks of Pakistan Army, Pakistan Navy, Pakistan Air Force, everybody. And I will also like to appreciate the nation also. It is not only men in uniform, it is also the men out of the uniform. They are same way patriotic, they are same way charged to help their brothers and sisters. And I think which makes Pakistan a very, very important, very responsible and very great nation as a whole.
True. That's very true, and you very aptly mentioned General Sarfaraz, who was martyred in the Laspela tragedy. And Shehzad, the matter of the fact is he was on the helicopter, he was looking for the assessment of the flood damage. And that's where his helicopter was crashed, it was drowned. I would like to, sir, ask you about his personality, and I believe that you knew him. What was he like, and would you like to pay tribute to him?
He was one of my colleagues, and we have done many courses with him. He was senior to me. And I must say that he was a very noble gentleman who always put country as a foremost than his own family. And he had very promising career. And right from second lieutenant to the lieutenant general, I think he did excellent jobs, excellent appointments, and everywhere, as also as a DA to America. He helped Pakistan a lot to have Pakistan image promoted in America. Wherever he was, even as Commander Southern Command, he was doing his best. As you said that he was monitoring the flood himself. He didn't let it to the others.
But he himself was on board.
He was commanding right from the front. As we say, the great leaders, they always fight on the front lines. They don't sit back in their offices and enjoying life. They always in front in the battlefield or in the area where they are required.
Exactly, and thank you very much for mentioning that, because it's not just about Lieutenant General Sarfaraz Sahab. I believe that how Brigadier Sahab over here has mentioned that each and every individual, may it be from the nation, may it be from Pakistan Army, Air Force, Navy, everybody, whenever they get a chance, would always want to contribute. And in addition to that, which is why, sir, now I want to talk about to transcending this message, reiterating among to our future generations, how the educational institutions do you think really need to play a role? Because when I was going to school, Beria College, he was in Army Public School, it was a very different feeling, that vigor, that zeal, that fervor. It was always around us, and they always made sure to nurture us with all of those values which were important to be a patriot. And this is something which I want to see in our future generations, which I do believe when we talk about educational institutions, a few of them might put in a little bit of effort, but then there are a few institutions who actually literally might have forgotten what our values and morals are. So how would you want to shed light on that?
I think very important aspect, we must talk about that. Because history teaches you how you should take action in future. And I think the glorious episode of history should be taught to every young person, whether male or female, because he needs to also have that great courage and valor in him, so that when there is any challenge for him or for her, she must understand or he must understand that he is part of that great nation which has a very rich history of sacrifices. And even if he has to lay his life or her life, she or he should not be fearful of his life or her life. And secondly also, when the young generation will be taught about accepting the challenges and coming up to that, and then also playing a very effective and very, I must say, dominant role in that challenge, is how our nation will progress. And our nation will get a status of the best nation among the community of nations. And every year, that is why 6 September was celebrated, to actually tell them what is their past, and they are a glorious nation, and they must trade their way in future also with that dignity, with that poise, and with that also stature.
Wow.
And secondly, I must say that this year, the 6th September has been postponed. Basically to have solidarity with the people who are in distress, who are stranded in floods. But that spirit that
is alive.
yeah, quality must be nurtured in our young generation. I think your program is going to do that. And it is a great effort by you people that telling your young generation what is 6th September, what are the sacrifices of Ghazis and Shohada, and they should also imbibe in that spirit in them also.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mukesh sir, for being with us. It's lovely to be in conversation with you. And once again, I'm going to mention that this unwavering resolve of the armed forces is backed by the nation. The love nation has for all of you people, for all of those people who've been serving within the armed forces, and for all of those people who've been contributing towards the development of the country is something that we'll always be in love with. And this is something which the parents really need to teach their future generations. Because Pakistan, you know, I was born in 87, you know, so I might not have seen the struggle, but I've seen the struggle when it was war on terror, when God forbid it was 2005 earthquake, 2010 floods, 2022 floods, 9/11. I've gone through that and I've seen how Pakistan Army, Pakistan Air Force, Pakistan Navy and the government of Pakistan and the political leaders have actually played a role while being together. I think we really need to kind of admire the services provided by National Disaster Management Authority, PD, MAs. And at this point of time, what we're going to do is that we're actually going to say bid farewell to Mukesh Saab. Sir, thank you very much once again for taking out time on such an important day. It was an honor to host you. And for everybody who's out there, you know, just to get your emotions up there, we have another one of my favorite patriotic songs which we will share with you. Once you will come back, we will have that conversation where how educational institutes can actually play a very important and a pivotal role. Let's go. Let's take a listen. When you guys will come back, we will have a different guest over here talking about educational institutions. Good morning.
जाए हैं ये बेटे किस माँ जाए हैं जो अपनी जवानी वार गए जो सुख लाए थे धरती का जो सुख लाए थे धरती का जलाए पैर अपने जो पीछे छोड़ बाहर गए ये बेटे किस माँ जाए हैं कुर्बान हुए जज्बों की कसम महफूज रखेंगे.
Welcome back. So today is 6th of September and we are celebrating the Defence and the Martyrs Day. Of course, it was postponed. The main ceremony in the GHQ was postponed because of the flooding. The situation is really bad out there in the country where 33 million people are affected by the floods. In other words, it means 1 in every 7 person is affected by that. And I was looking out for some stats and I found out that 18,000 schools have been destroyed in these floodings, which is a very huge amount of number. So let's imagine the amount of the damage that it has done to the students, to the kids who were out there in the school. And before that, Shahzad, we had coronavirus pandemic, which has, I think, sufficiently damaged the educational structure because online learning, e-learning was not exactly the sort of the learning that would imbibe the values.
And it was only a concept introduced to the urban places.
That's
So when we talk about South Punjab, when we talk about Sindh, Dadu, Thatta, Hyderabad, I still believe that that the kids really didn't get to learn quite a lot in those 2 years, and from there onwards now when we see that all of a sudden, alhamdulillah, everything was back on track. Now we've been hit by floods, and those floods, which are actually a reason of all of those developed countries and our geolocation, and imagine that the world really needs to come together, and we're not even requesting. It should have been your sole responsibility in the first place to recognize that it is because of your mistakes that Pakistan is going through so much pain and suffering, which is why I believe that it is really important today to highlight what educational institutions, what role in fact educational institutions can play to make sure that in days to come when we talk about floods that we prepare our children, whether they volunteer, they raise awareness, they be the ambassadors of peace and change. And to talk about this, we're lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be one of my favorite professors from back in the day when I was in my university, would always have an ear, would always listen to all of what we wanted to say, and then always come back with something which would benefit us in our life. And still now, alhamdulillah, we have been benefiting from his advices, suggestions, even though that he has started to look younger than me now. But yes, that's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. We're lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be an analyst and educationalist. He is Mr. Asif Rasool. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for joining. What are you doing, sir? You're getting younger than me.
Well,
I've
it's a
been
tough
telling people you're
competition.
my professor, and now I look your professor.
Shahzad, you're not younger. When will you realize this? Okay, that
But
was
sir,
on the lighter
oh
note.
yeah, that's perfectly okay. Which is why we have you over here conducting the show with me, na? But now, sir, talking about you getting younger is something we'll do off the record. But what role do you believe that the education institutions need to play, especially where Hajar has mentioned that more than 18,000 schools have been affected? There was COVID, children weren't studying, and that's a lot more damage than we can even think about or comprehend.
Exactly. We have seen, like in COVID, perhaps we were not ready for it. We were not having any kind of infrastructure, and we could still see the shock waves in academia when we meet these kids and when they're just coming to the senior classes. It really damaged a lot in our. And now, just talking about the second aspect, like in the start of the program, you gave a very strong message to the world, and I fully agree with that. Basically, all the most or top-notch environmentalists in America, in other countries, in European countries, they are just crying over it that, well, this is a reality and it's staring us in the face. Perhaps they are trying their level best to at least prepare themselves. But third world countries or countries who are progressing, I mean, they do not have any kind of infrastructure, and ultimately we suffered very badly. 1/3 of Pakistan is inundated with the water, and what to talk about children education. For example, if we just compare it with COVID, well, initially there was a problem.
True.
But we just tried to, at universities, they tried their level best to cope with this issue, though it was not sufficient, but still somehow we managed it. And then the government took this decision to go for this, like there were like programs on PTV, that was manageable. But talking about this current scenario, well, I don't think so, because in those days there was a different situation. For example, people were there, they had like in cities they had mobile connection, but right now, I mean, they are in such a worst scenario that we have got to go, like it's going to be onslaught from every aspect. I mean, right now we are not in a position to decide what to do, but starting from this international donors or international these organization, they've got a proper structure. At least they can, the way you just gave the strong message, and they must come here. They've got very nice strategies, and they can start off with that, because
Build that
we are
together.
not fully ready for that.
Yeah.
And then second, like at government level, we can just plan. And third, the way students and faculty members from different school, colleges and universities, they're going to different areas. Right now, they're just providing them like shelter, like tents, food and all that. And they also see that how they can just help. For example, one of my friend, he is running a private school. He just started a campaign in my area, Talagang, Mansoor Shah. And last day he was telling me that we just collected like 18 lakhs from government school and 24 lakhs. Shazan Sahab, it's a very small area.
Yeah.
And if teachers are willing to come and to become active, they just went there. No doubt most of them, they're teachers, they're just working, but I didn't see him like teaching any kid, because right now they are not in a position where they can, like, already there's a lot of water in their homes, and they've got,
So what are
first
they
of
doing
all,
with
like,
the money they have gathered so far?
since they're teachers, so they just properly plan it. They just go to different areas,
Yeah.
and it's not that they directly start. They just took the cash, they went there. So first of all, they just visit different areas where, let's say, people are not reaching to them. So they properly go for the recce.
Yep.
And then when they get to know that, well, there are certain villages where perhaps still people are waiting. So they just go, they just check what they require, and they come back to the main area, they buy whatever the requirement is, and they just provide it to them.
I think
Okay.
it's wonderful, and you know, in addition to that, Haja, I believe that the best idea would be that, you know, where you mentioned that all of those teachers, they go different places, see what the requirement is, and it's wonderful. So, you know, so what you can do is probably give them workbooks on your next trip, go back, see if they filled in those workbooks, bring them back, and this is how we can continue to make sure that they're still learning every single day. But because we precisely are talking about the role of education institutes during floods, so now let's shed light on that too as well, because it's difficult for them to kind of regain all of their operations at this point of time. What is the best possible solution, do you believe, out there for all of those education institutions which are still working and have not been affected by the flood, because they need to step up in the game?
First of all,
Accommodating kids from other schools, probably, you know, we can do that.
yes, exactly. This is a very good idea. For example, number one is like teachers who are going to different areas. They can just request the other teachers who are in that area, and they can just prepare a kind of temporary places for them, and they can just invite the kids there, and they can start up with the temporary classes. And with the passage of time, they will be there to refine the system. At least this should be the first strategy. And at later stage, government should start up, because now we have got this technology, and through technology, you can, like, it's not like reaching to every area, but at least you can just select the main areas, and where you can just take these kids, whatever the level is, school, college, and this could be the second planning. And third one is, like, in different areas of Pakistan, we have got teacher association. If that one association from Talagang has done this much successfully, what about rest of the people?
True.
So they can just plan it, and they can intervene there, and they can go with their strategies. For example, taking books, teaching them in separately, whatever they can just do, and this is how this could be the second right
and,
now.
And in addition to that, I know, Hajar, that you actually need to pose a question, but in line of this, I believe that, you know, federal board and HSSC, they can actually kind of come up with greater solutions, because for all of those students who might not still be able to appear in the board examination, you know, the board really needs to kind of give them, you know, some sort of comfort by saying that, okay, you know, if the percentage comes down to this point, you'll still be passed. Because if we see the ecosystem of how the education industry works, every year there needs to be a number of people or children who really needs to enroll in universities, for the universities to keep on working, and so that the entire ecosystem keeps on working. But God forbid if such a calamity is supposed to come almost every year, because it's not just this year. God forbid, we don't know what 2023 holds for us, 2024, because it's because of climate change. It's because of all of those developed countries who have actually contributed towards the emission in the fossil fuels in such a way that we actually have to take the burn. So what would you suggest that in days to come would be sustainable when we talk about our education institutes? Because God forbid, this might happen next year and the year after that, and it might continue even.
I mean, this is such a wonderful point. Look, monsoon cycle is there, like 3 to 4 cycles are there. But this time, this hit us in the worst possible manner.
And even yesterday it was raining, last night it was raining, there was an earthquake, and so we don't know what's going to happen, God forbid.
We do not have resiliency, when it comes to our infrastructure.
We have got to work on this, but unfortunately, problem with our part of the world is that we never prepare ourselves. For example, the other day, somebody was telling me that like when these British, they were there, they didn't allow people to construct their houses near Ravi River. Okay, as long as they stayed, it's not obviously a good thing, but just telling people that they were like nice. But just see, no Shadara, God forbid if something happens, and you are not in any position to control the damage and all
And we have spoken about it before.
And same is the case with education, for example, COVID, it has gone. Temporary arrangements were there, but God forbid if again there's a problem, I don't think so that we'll be able to manage it. But now it's a very serious question. We know that will be hit, and this is there all over the world. For example, talking about America, they had their own problem, okay, like rain and all that. Then we had worst problem in UK. I mean, in the last like 1 or 2 months, first time they just saw a red alert for heat waves, and there was this one report that rescuers, they got active after World War II. Not see the level, but still they have got a kind of infrastructure. But we are having problem, and especially in remote areas. So we have got to devise a strategy. Either it could be like main centers, where you can just invite kids and they can go on for this arrangement. Because right now, I don't think so that very quickly they'll be able to manage. Because one of the doctors visited that area and he just came back and said that, well, I'm not in a great hurry. Because what I have seen on the grounds, it's not a matter of days, of months, it's of years. And initially people are like pumped up, they're going, they're helping out, but very soon, they'll be out of the scene, and still they need the help. But yes, government boards, I hope, you have rightly said, that they have got to be very much lenient, and they've got to devise strategies for them so that they shouldn't suffer. They're not responsible for that. Unfortunately, they were living in those areas, so they should be very much lenient about it. I fully agree.
And adding to this conversation, Shahzad, we have the guest here, and he talked about that when I was in the school, I joined the scout services, and I do feel that the installation of the volunteerism is very much important when it comes to the educational institution, because they imbibe you the values of helping people out there who are in distress, so for example in these flooding, so they can volunteer out there. And this system, this thing needs to be revived in our education reforms in our education system. So with this note, we are closing, and we would like to thank you, Asif Rasool Saab, for once again coming to us and instilling us the great values about the education institution, that too in the flooding season. With that, we will say goodbye. Allah Hafiz.
Good morning.